Hello everyone, let's get to it as we are in one of our final homework videos about Unit 2. In the prior video about equilibrium price, we have finally, after so many weeks, began to uncover why stuff costs what stuff costs. And the answer is, it's the interaction of supply and demand in the marketplace. We have the consumer side of the market who wants a lot of stuff for really cheap, and then on the opposite side, we have the supplier side of the market who wants to sell a lot of stuff for really expensive. We know now that they meet in the middle at equilibrium price. It's a reasonable price where both parties are happy. The consumer pays a reasonable amount and is happy with the price he or she paid, and the supplier gets to sell the product for a reasonable amount that he or she is happy at as well. Again, that's equilibrium price. Now, I alluded to this in the prior video, how price ceilings and price floors restrict the exchange of price. So that is our one LEQ, all right? Now, we are referring to shortages and surpluses. In other words, how do price ceilings and price floors cause shortages and surpluses? Now, before we get into that, I have to pause here and take a step back from us. I really want you guys to listen. This is something I'm going to expect you to know. So I'm going back to like Unit 1. Back when I was introducing a pure market economy, there is something you need to know. Pure market economy assumes that there is no government interference. Now, I've shared with you all many times that pure market economies don't really exist in the world today. Most advanced countries in the world are mixed market economies. That is, they do have government interference, but tend to be more market leaning on the spectrum. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please review Unit 1 videos. Now, there's a man that you need to know, and again, forgive me, I should have covered this in Unit 1, but you really need to know this to understand where we're going with this. This man's name is Adam Smith. He wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. He was a Scottish economist and philosopher, and we're talking back in the 1700s here. And in The Wealth of Nations, he basically outlined this idea of laissez-faire. So take a look at this word right here. It's pronounced laissez-faire, not lazy-fairy or anything. It's pronounced laissez-faire, and it basically means hands-off. So laissez-faire means hands-off. In terms of a market economy, that means that the government has no interference in the economy, okay? He spoke about an invisible hand. Here's what he means. This is all going to make sense in a moment, so please just bear with me. He spoke about an invisible hand. He said that when markets are left to themselves, that is, no government interference in any way, the market will always correct itself. Now, in a prior video, we talked about shortages and surpluses. If the market is left alone, according to Adam Smith and his laissez-faire idea, if the market is left alone, it will eventually correct itself. We do not need the government to interfere in the market. And he says, as if guided by an invisible hand, the market will be steered towards the equilibrium price. Okay? So we have Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations. In The Wealth of Nations, he outlined the idea of a laissez-faire market economy. He said that an invisible hand tends to correct the market itself, all right? So Adam Smith is all about pure market economy with no government interference. Now, you guys know that we operate in a mixed market economy with government intervention. And again, I'm not trying to pull political sides here or anything, but the idea of the mixed market economy is that the government actually can try to protect consumers and suppliers. When this happens, is that the government becomes involved in setting prices through price ceilings and price floors. So let's see what these terms are. So we have a price ceiling, okay? A price ceiling is a form of government intervention. So right there, government intervention. We are no longer a pure market economy. We are a mixed market economy. It is a legal maximum price that may be charged for a particular good or service. The most common example by far of a price ceiling is the price of rent in large cities. After World War II, when the troops came home from Europe, there was a surge of apartment rent in New York City. Many veterans decided to settle down in New York City. The issue was on veteran pay, and after the GI Bill was passed, they could not afford it. So what the government did said, well, hey, this isn't fair. These guys went out and died for our country. They should be able to settle down in New York City if they want to. So the government said, okay, you know what? And I'm making this price up, by the way. The government said, you know what? We think it's fair if we set a price ceiling of $500 a month. That is, no apartment in New York City can be over $500 a month. That way everyone has a fair shot of living in New York City, okay? Now, here's the deal. That sounds good. That sounds very noble, right? Oh, that's so good. Let's hold hands and kumbaya. Everyone can live in New York City now at an affordable apartment. The issue is price ceilings cause shortages. Now, think about this. Price ceilings cause shortages because the quantity demanded goes up because of the lower price. That's the law of demand. Oh, cool. Price in New York City is cheaper. That's going to cause the quantity demanded to go up because the price went down. But at the exact same time, remember guys, we're talking about equilibrium now. At the exact same time, the quantity supplied goes down because of the lowered price. That is the law of supply. Let's take a look at this on a graph. Okay, so here we are. I have a pre-made graph for us. We have a graph illustrating price versus quantity. We have our equilibrium price right here. So we're pretending that this is the equilibrium price and quantity for apartments in New York City. So remember, this is where both the consumers and the suppliers are reasonable and happy. So the government comes in and says, you know what, this price right here, even though the market says that this is a fair price, we believe that this is not fair because the veterans who fought and died for our country can't afford to live in New York City, which we think is bogus, and many of us may agree with that. So what we're going to do is, and I say we, I'm referring to the government. The government says, you know what, we are going to set a price ceiling on this, saying that rent can't be above a certain price. Now guys, this sounds absolutely crazy. I want you to hear this, okay? Price ceilings, what's the first thing you think of? Think of a ceiling? You think of something above you, maybe? Price ceilings happen below equilibrium price. So if you see these two dots right here, guys, this is a lot from the shortage and surplus video. Now, I also did this. I didn't tell you at the time, but this is an example of a price ceiling. So take a look at what we have here. When the government comes in and sets this price ceiling at this price, so let's say the price was originally $800, that's equilibrium. The government says, no, that's not fair. Let's make it $500 down here. Well, that's cool. Look at what happened though. If the original quantity was right here, the quantity demanded went up, as you guys can see. The quantity demanded went up because of the lower price. But at the exact same time, now put yourself in the supplier's position. Well, crap. If I'm not going to make as much money, why am I going to want to build more apartments? There's nothing in it for me. At the exact same time, the quantity supplied went down. So we have this gap in here. We have this is where we should be on the quantity side. About right here is where we should be on the price side. But we're way down here. Now, I shared in the shortage and surplus video this triangle right here. This triangle represents the shortage for apartments in New York City. All right. So think about this, guys. More people would like to rent at the government-controlled price of, say, $500. However, apartment owners are unwilling to build more rental units if they cannot charge higher rent. Remember, they're fueled by the profit incentive. They want to make a profit. This results in a shortage of apartments to rent. Okay? So you guys have seen this graph before. I simply did not tell you that this line right here is called a price ceiling. I'm going to put PC for price ceiling. I know that's annoying. You would think a ceiling is above, but in the case of equilibrium price, price ceilings are set below equilibrium price. Okay, so when I say price ceiling, I want you guys to think about rent in New York City, okay? That's one of the largest examples. All right, now let's do the opposite of that. Let's cover price floors. If a price ceiling is a legal maximum, a price floor is a legal minimum price below which a good or service may not be sold. Price floors tend to be much more common than price ceilings. Now, here's a price floor that affects quite a few of you. Minimum wage is a price floor. Now, we've discussed in class before that minimum wage is a form of government intervention in our mixed economy. Minimum wage says that, you know what, workers, laborers, should not be paid below $8.05 an hour. Other examples, price floors are very common in the agriculture industry to protect farmers. Remember guys, the whole reason the government intervenes is not necessarily because they hate us, because they want to protect consumers and suppliers. So let's say that there is something wrong with the corn crop, but the government doesn't want all of the corn farmers to go out of business and shut down their farm. So they set a minimum price on which we can pay for corn, therefore supporting the corn farmers. Now, just how price ceilings cause a shortage, price floors cause a surplus. This is one of those things that'll make more sense when you see it on a graph. Okay, so here we are, and this is going to look a lot like the video from shortages and surpluses. I showed you guys this in that video. A surplus is when the quantity supplied, so here's our supply curve, it's when the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. So our quantity supplied is somewhere about right here. I'm trying not to draw the lines all the way down just because I don't want the graph to get too confusing. Pretend there's lines connecting this. And the quantity demanded is way down here. So that is the quantity supplied is greater than the quantity demanded. Okay? Now we know from looking at this graph that equilibrium price is about right here and the equilibrium quantity is about right here. That's where all parties are happy. Okay, so just the other night I showed you this line. As annoying as this is, a price floor is above equilibrium price. Again, I know you guys think floor is on the bottom. That makes sense. If I could rename it, I would. But a price floor is above equilibrium price. And we shared in that particular video that all this right here is a surplus. This triangle here is a surplus. And for the first time, we now know this line has a name. This line is called a price floor. Good stuff. So think about this. Most fast food places start their workers at minimum wage. Now imagine this. What do you guys think is better? And again, this is a topic we could debate forever. Do you think it is better for fast food places to hire 2 laborers at $4 an hour or 1 laborer at the current minimum wage of about $8 an hour? Again, we could bang our heads against this forever, but the government decided that it's best at minimum wage at $8 an hour, okay? So let's pretend, though, that, you know what, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Long John Silver's, Wendy's, KFC, they would love to hire more workers, but not at $8 an hour. They're not willing or able to afford it. However, let's say they were willing and able to hire workers at $6 an hour. So let's pretend that this equilibrium price right here is $6 an hour. So again, think about unemployment. Think about how many of you all want jobs but can't get jobs. It may not necessarily be because, oh, well, no one is hiring, we're overstaffed. It could be because the manager of these places says, you know what, we simply are not willing and able, we cannot afford to pay you $8.05 an hour. We would love to pay you $6 an hour. We just can't afford the minimum wage of $8 an hour. So this creates a surplus of workers. When the minimum wage, the price floor, is set above equilibrium price, that creates a surplus. Alright guys, if you followed those graphs, you are doing very, very well. I've mentioned the past few homework videos, the graphs have gotten a bit more intense, and I hope you guys have a better appreciation now for why prices are what they are, why stuff costs what stuff costs in America's mixed market economy. So here's our LEQ in review. How do price ceilings and price floors restrict the free exchange of price? So the way they restrict is that price ceilings create a shortage, and you must remember price ceilings are shown below the equilibrium price. The most common example is that of rent. Price floors create a surplus, which is shown on the graph above equilibrium price. The most common price floor is minimum wage, and perhaps the most controversial one as well. There are those out there in Congress who say, you know what, we should not have a minimum wage because we believe it's better to get more people working. Even if they're making less money per hour, it's better to have more people working than less people working, making a little bit more money. But again, that's something we could debate forever. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you all later.